My daughter's husband told me the garage was mine to sleep in, while her sister's family used my bedroom for the reunion. I said, "Fine. You two handle the whole weekend yourselves." They had no idea I'd already made a call that would end their free ride by Monday morning. Welcome back, and thank you for spending part of your day with me. If you're new here, tell me in the comments what state you're writing from. I read every one. A quick note before we start. Parts of this story have been shaped for the sake of the telling, but what it leaves behind in you is real. The morning this began was a Saturday in early April, and it started the way most of my mornings had started for the last 3 years, quiet, with the porch lights still on from the night before, and the smell of drip coffee working its way through the kitchen. I'm Walter Griggs. I'm 66 years old, and for 38 of those years I made my living as a master electrician, first for a contracting outfit out of Tulsa, and later on my own, running my own crew, wiring everything from strip malls to hospitals to the kind of custom homes where the owner wants a chandelier that dims to 12 different settings. I know wire the way some men know scripture. I can walk into a panel box a stranger built and tell you in under a minute whether the man who did it respected the work or just wanted to get paid. This house, though the one I was sitting in that morning with my coffee going cold on the porch rail, this one I built for love, not for a paycheck. Built it with my own hands over 4 summers, and every wire and every wall was pulled and stripped and connected by me personally, because the woman I built it for wouldn't have settled for less. Her name was Ruth, my wife of 34 years. She's the reason there's a skylight over the kitchen sink that nobody asked for and nobody needed, because she said she wanted to wash dishes under real daylight even in December, and I told her that was the single most impractical request I'd ever gotten from a client. And she said, "Walter, you're not my contractor, you're my husband. Put in the skylight." I put in the skylight. Ruth passed 18 months ago, a stroke, sudden, on a Wednesday afternoon while she was out in the garden pulling weeds from around her tomato cages. I was inside, running the vacuum, and didn't hear a thing. By the time I found her, it was already too late for anything I could have done. I kept every one of her gardening tools exactly where she left them in the shed. I kept her reading glasses on the little table by the good armchair. I kept the wind spinner her sister sent us for our 20th anniversary, turning slow circles on the back porch, and some mornings the creak of it is the only thing that convinces me the world is still moving forward at its normal pace. I was sitting with that quiet on the porch when I heard tires on the gravel drive, and I looked up to see my neighbor Pete Alvarez coming through the side gate with 2 coffees from the gas station on Route 9, the one with the biscuits that are somehow better than they have any right to be. Pete's been living 2 doors down from me for going on 26 years. We met putting up a fence line between our properties, back when we were both too proud to hire it out, argued for a full weekend about post spacing, and have been arguing about something or other ever since in the exact comfortable way that only happens between men who trust each other completely. He handed a cup through the porch rail without a word, the way he always does, and dropped into the chair across from me. "You look like something the cat left on the porch," he said. "Good morning to you too, Pete. I mean it with love. That's what makes it worse." He grinned at that, and we sat and drank our coffee and watched a squirrel work its way along the top of the fence with the kind of total confidence that only a creature with nothing to lose can manage. The morning had that particular Oklahoma stillness to it, right before the wind picks up in the afternoon and reminds you it never really left. "How's the knee?" Pete asked, nodding at the leg I'd had scoped in January. "Complaining. Same as always." "You still favoring it on the stairs?" "A little." He nodded slow, the way he does when he's building up to something. Pete's got a habit of circling a subject twice before he lands on it, same as he used to circle a job site, checking the framing before he'd say a word about what was wrong with it. "You hear from Danielle lately?" he asked, and he kept his eyes on the fence line when he said it, not on me. My daughter's name landed in the morning air heavier than 4 syllables should. I wrapped both hands around the coffee cup and felt the warmth of it settle into my palms. "Here and there," I said. Pete nodded again and didn't push, because that's the kind of friend he is, the kind who knows when a question has already done its work and doesn't need any help. 3 weeks after that Saturday, on a Thursday evening at the end of the month, headlights I didn't recognize swept across my front window, and everything after that point started moving in a direction I hadn't chosen. I was in my recliner with a paperback Ruth had given me the Christmas before she passed, one of those thick histories of the Dust Bowl years she said would hold my attention better than a wiring manual. I'd been stuck on the same chapter for almost a week, not because it was dull, but because she'd left notes in the margins in her small, slanted handwriting, and every time I hit one, I had to set the book down and just sit with it a while. That evening's note, next to a paragraph about families who lost everything and rebuilt from nothing, said, "Walter, this is you, stubborn enough to grow something out of dust." I was still smiling at that when the truck pulled up outside, a rented moving van, the kind with the orange logo, backed up crooked against my curb. Standing at the end of my front walk under the porch light was my daughter. Danielle Griggs Foster is 34 years old. She's got my mother's stubborn chin and Ruth's exact same laugh, the one that used to fill up a room before it ever got the chance to be quiet. Standing a half step behind her, gripping the strap of a duffel bag so tight his knuckles had gone pale, was her husband, Marcus. He sells insurance, does it well by all accounts, drives a company car with the logo on the door. I opened the front door before either of them could knock. "Dad." Danielle's voice cracked on the single word, same way it used to when she was 16 and had wrecked the car and needed to tell me before her mother found out. "Can we come in? We need to talk to you about something, and I need you to hear the whole thing before you say anything." "Come in. You're letting the bugs in." We sat at the kitchen table, the one Ruth and I bought secondhand from an estate sale outside of Norman back in '98 and refinished twice because she kept finding a stain she liked better. Danielle laced her fingers together on the table's surface. Marcus stayed standing a beat too long before he finally sat, like a man who wasn't fully sure he was welcome to. "Our landlord sold the building," Danielle said, her voice tight and rehearsed, the way people talk when they've practiced the words in the car on the drive over. "We've got 60 days to be out, and with the market the way it is, everything decent is either way over our budget or 40 minutes out past the interstate. We just need somewhere stable for a little while, Dad. To save, to get our footing. 4 months. That's all we're asking. 4 months, and we'll have first, last, and deposit ready for a real place." My chest did the thing it always does when I already know my answer and wish I didn't. I looked at my daughter's hands, the same hands I taught to hold a fishing rod on the lake behind my brother's place, the same hands that gripped mine so hard in the hospital hallway the night her mother didn't wake up that I had bruises the next day. And the wanting to say yes came up in me so fast it crowded out nearly everything else standing in its way. 4 months, I said. August 1st. That's the date, and on that date, the two of you are moving into a place of your own. Not looking. Moved in. Danielle's whole body seemed to exhale at once. "Yes, absolutely, Dad. August 1st. "Thank you." Marcus reached across the table and shook my hand, his grip firm and a little too eager, the handshake of a man closing a sale. "We'll be so easy to have around, Walter," he said. "You won't even know we're here." I looked at him a beat longer than he expected. In my experience, people who genuinely mean to be considerate rarely feel the need to promise it out loud in advance. But his eyes looked sincere enough, and I told myself I was being unfair to a man I barely knew. "Go on and bring your things in," I said. What came through my front door over the next 2 hours was considerably more than a rental unit's worth of furniture. There were totes marked office, boxes marked Marcus, files, do not lose, a rolling desk chair that got stuck sideways in my hallway for a solid 10 minutes before Marcus wrenched it free, red-faced. There was a second flat-screen television. There was more electronics equipment in total than there was furniture. I stood aside and let it all come in, same as I'd have let anything in for my own daughter. It was the last box that stopped me. Danielle carried it in herself, a flat one, the kind meant for framed photographs, and she set it down on Ruth's side table by the window, the little round one, where my wife used to keep a rotating collection of whatever currently held her attention, a seed catalog, a paperback, the framed photo from our trip to Galveston in 2009. Danielle moved the photo aside without a word and set her laptop bag in its place. The space where Ruth's things had lived for 18 months was suddenly just bare wood, claimed without anybody asking. My jaw tightened until I felt it at the hinge. I turned and walked to the kitchen before I said something I'd have spent the next 4 months regretting. Marcus found me there a few minutes later. "Walter," he said, hand briefly on my shoulder. I know how much this means, us landing here. I promise you it's temporary. I mean that. I looked at my son-in-law's face in the kitchen light and wanted so badly to believe him that it felt physical, a warmth right behind my sternum that was equal parts hope and dread. Get some rest, I told him. You've got a lot of unpacking left. The first month was manageable, if you're willing to set the bar for manageable somewhere down around the floor and leave it there. The second week, Marcus fixed the wobble in the porch step without being asked, came in afterward wiping his hands on a rag, pleased with himself, and I thought, all right, maybe this will be fine. We sat and talked about the thunder for 20 minutes like old times, and for a while the house felt full of people who belonged in it. Then May arrived and took that feeling with it. It started with the spare room, which Marcus had set up as a home office with his laptop, 2 monitors, and a printer that ran at all hours. Fine, I'd offered the room. But by the second week, he'd moved the printer into the hallway because the office was too tight, and by the third week the hallway was permanently narrowed by a filing cabinet nobody had asked me about. One Tuesday I came out to find a conference call happening in my own living room, Marcus pacing in front of the television with a headset on, gesturing at nobody. My recliner pushed a foot out of place to make room. Marcus, I said when he finally noticed me standing there, are you planning on doing this in here every morning? He looked around like he'd forgotten where he was standing. The Wi-Fi's strongest in this room, Walter. It's just till I close out this quarter. He said it warm enough that objecting would have felt like kicking a dog. I said nothing and went back to the kitchen. By the end of May, my recliner had been quietly relocated to the corner twice. My afternoon quiet reliably interrupted, and Danielle had started using Ruth's good sewing table, the one with the hand-turned legs Ruth's father had made as a shipping station for whatever she was selling online that week, boxes and packing tape and a label printer, stacked where a woman I loved for 34 years used to sit and mend my work shirts. That same week, Marcus moved 2 totes of Christmas decorations and a kayak into my garage without asking. I came home from the hardware store to find my truck sitting out in a light rain because there was no room left inside. Marcus, my truck's outside. Oh yeah, sorry man. I'll shuffle things around this weekend. He didn't. My truck sat in the rain for 9 days. The one that hit hardest happened on a Thursday evening in early June. I came into the kitchen to start dinner and found Ruth's good cutting board out the maple one, end grain, the one she'd bought at a craft fair in Eureka Springs and treated better than most people treat their cars. Danielle was using it to cut backing foam for shipping boxes, the box cutter leaving long gouges straight through the surface. My throat closed up. That board, I said, and my voice came out rougher than I meant it to, belonged to your mother. Danielle looked up. For half a second something crossed her face that might have been real regret. Oh, I didn't even think about it. Sorry, Dad. She moved the foam to the counter and kept working. I picked the board up with both hands, ran my thumb along the 4 deep scars in the wood, and carried it to my bedroom closet, up on the shelf above my flannel shirts, where nobody would touch it again without asking me first. Pete came by that Saturday and found me out back trimming the hedge Ruth had planted along the fence line, which is what I do when I need my hands busy, so my mind can work through something without getting underfoot of itself. How's it going in there? He asked, leaning on the rail. Fine. That why you're out here trimming a hedge that doesn't need it. I clipped a branch and dropped it in the bin. It needed it. Pete picked up his coffee. Uh-huh. The voice of a man who's known you 30 years and can hear everything you're not saying. You eat alone last night? My clippers stopped. How'd you know that? Because I can see your kitchen window from my driveway, Walt. Saw you standing there eating a sandwich over the sink at 7 o'clock, while the TV in your own living room was going full volume with somebody else's ball game. I didn't answer right away. Snip. Snip. It's temporary, I finally said. You keep saying that word, Pete said quietly. I keep waiting for it to mean something. August first came and went, the way a deadline does, when nobody on the other end intends to honor it without ceremony, without a word of acknowledgement, with a fresh excuse already sitting on the counter waiting for me, like a mug somebody else left for me to wash. It was the last week of July, unusually hot even for Oklahoma, 3 straight days pushing past 100, the kind of heat that makes old wood swell and old men sit very still with their thoughts. I was at the kitchen table with my second cup of coffee when Marcus came down in his work clothes, grabbed his keys, and started for the door. Marcus, I said. He stopped, hand on the frame, turned half around. Yeah? It's the end of July. His jaw tightened, just slightly, just enough that I caught it. Then he rearranged his face into something easier. I know, Walt. Look, rates are brutal right now. Everything in our range is either falling apart or 45 minutes out. I understand the market's hard, I said. That's not what I asked. His shoulders pulled inward, the posture of a cornered man. We just need a little more time. How much more time, Marcus? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Maybe by the end of the year. End of the year, I repeated. Walt, I know. I know this isn't what you want to hear. But we are genuinely trying. This isn't us taking advantage of you. That last sentence landed somewhere behind my ribs and stayed there like a splinter, too small to grab and too sharp to ignore. I picked up my cup, drank the last of it, set it down with more care than the moment required, because I needed something to do with my hands other than what I actually wanted to do with them. Danielle appeared in the doorway in her robe, phone already in her hand, thumbs moving. The Wi-Fi keeps dropping during my lives, she said, not looking up. Can somebody call the provider today? I've got a sale event tonight and I cannot lose connection. I'll call from the office, Marcus said, and left. That Saturday, Pete found me by the fence, not trimming anything this time, just standing there. Still here? He said. Not really a question. They need more time. The market. Uh-huh. Pete looked at the house. She's running her whole business out of your living room now. She's always running it out of my living room. Pete's voice dropped into the register he uses when he means every word completely. I've watched you give that girl everything she's ever asked for. Money when she needed it. Time when she needed it. A roof, again, when she needed it. And I've never once heard you complain, because that's who you are. He paused. But kindness without a boundary isn't kindness, Walt. It's an open door. And that door's been open 5 months now, and nobody on the other side of it has any plan of walking back through it on their own. My throat went tight. I turned toward the hedge so he wouldn't see my face do what it was doing. I need to think, I said. I know you do. He pushed off the rail. Just don't think so long, there's nothing left to do. The first Monday of September, I sat down with my coffee and pulled up my bank account online, same as I've done every first Monday for the last 15 years. The number on the screen stopped me cold. I read it once, read it again, set my cup down with a small, careful click and read it a third time, because my mind kept insisting there had to be a misplaced decimal, something that would resolve itself if I just looked one more time. There wasn't. $28,000. Gone from the account I'd built since Ruth and I paid off this house, the one I called my someday, my body gives out fund. The one meant for the day I finally can't climb a ladder anymore and need to be able to say, all right, that's fine. I've got enough to live on. Gone, in a single withdrawal, 5 weeks earlier. My hands started shaking, not dramatic, just a fine tremor that worked up through my wrists, no matter how flat I pressed my palms to the desk. I thought there had to be an explanation, a bank error, fraud, something external, something that had nothing to do with the two people sleeping down the hall. I walked to the garage. Marcus's old sedan wasn't in its spot. In its place sat a brand new pickup, extended cab, chrome trim, throwing back the thin morning light like a statement. I'd noticed it arrive 4 days after the withdrawal cleared, and told myself it was none of my business, that Marcus was a grown man entitled to his own purchases, that I shouldn't assume. Standing there with $28,000 missing from my retirement and a truck I hadn't been told about sitting where my son-in-law's old car used to be, I was done not assuming. I called Pete. I need you to come over. 1 beat. Putting my boots on. He was at my back door in 9 minutes. I laid the bank statement on the table between us and watched his face while he read it. Pete's not a man who reacts loud. He processes. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumped near his ear, and when he finally looked up, his eyes had gone very quiet. 5 weeks ago, he said. 5 weeks ago, I confirmed. And the truck showed up. Fria. 4 days later. Pete exhaled slow through his nose, the sound of a man choosing strategy over anger because strategy does more good. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I said. But I know what I'm not doing. I'm not walking down that hall and handing him a way out of this before I know exactly what he did and why. Pete sat with me 2 hours that afternoon. Didn't tell me what to do, Didn't push toward any particular decision, just sat and let me work through it, present in the right places, willing to say the hard thing when it needed saying. That evening I called Danielle down to the kitchen. Marcus came too, unbidden, the way a man does when he already knows on some animal level that a reckoning is arriving. I slid the printed statement across the table and left my hand flat beside it. "Did you take this money?" I asked Marcus directly. His jaw worked. His hands came up flat on the table, fingers spread, bracing. "It was going to be a loan," he said, voice rough. "I was going to pay it back before you even noticed." My commission structure changed, and I thought I'd have the bonus covered by now, but the truck deal was only good that week, and "You took $28,000 from my retirement," I said, without asking me, without telling me, without a single word of explanation. "I know how it looks. In your head it was a loan." "Yes." "Did you tell your wife?" Danielle's face went pale. "Marcus, you told me you got approved for financing." "I know I should have asked you first, Walt," Marcus said, eyes wet now, bright and miserable. "But you'd have said no, and I needed." "You needed," I repeated, and my voice came out quieter than I expected, which happens sometimes when what's underneath is too big to make loud. "That money wasn't there for your needs, Marcus. That money was there for the day my body finally tells me it's done climbing ladders and running conduit, and I need to be able to say, I have enough." Something crossed his face, and then he said the sentence I will carry for the rest of my life, not for the words themselves, but for how easily they came out, like he'd already thought them 100 times and just never seen a reason not to say them out loud. "Walt, come on. This house is basically going to be Danielle's someday anyway." The kitchen went dead still. I felt it the way you feel a wire go hot before you hear the pop, a vibration somewhere below the surface that tells you something's just failed in a place you can't see yet. My chest went hollow, like something had been lifted straight out of it. My eyes burned with a heat that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with grief. Grief for the son-in-law I'd let myself trust. Grief for 34 years of raising a daughter I thought I knew. Grief for every board I'd cut with my own hands, that this man had just reduced, out loud, to an inheritance he'd already spent in his imagination. "Get out of my kitchen," I said. "Walt, I didn't mean—" "I know exactly what you meant. You just didn't expect to have to hear yourself say it." He stood. His face had gone gray and slack. He walked out without another word, and Danielle sat frozen at the table, staring at the bank statement like she was seeing it for the first time. I stood alone after they'd both gone, palms flat on the table. Ruth and I had refinished together, and breathed until the burning behind my eyes eased enough to see through. Then I folded the statement once and put it in my shirt pocket, against my chest, where I'd feel it every time I moved. I was going to need it. October arrived gray and slow. The conversation about the money settled into the house like cold air through a window left cracked present in everything, spoken of by nobody. Marcus and I moved around each other with the wide, careful radius of two men who'd said something that couldn't be unsaid. Danielle, for her part, seemed determined to act as though nothing had shifted and kept right on filming her little sales videos in my living room like the whole thing had blown past her entirely. Then, on a Tuesday, in the second week of November, the reunion arrived. Not the seasoned Danielle's version of it. I came downstairs to find the kitchen table covered in printed spreadsheets and paint swatches and a hand-drawn seating chart. Sticky notes covered the fridge, the cabinet above the coffee maker, the microwave. "We're doing the Foster family reunion here this year," Danielle announced when she saw me, like she was informing me of the weather. Marcus's whole side, his parents, his two brothers, and their families, his Aunt Carol from Little Rock. 40, maybe 45 people. Memorial Day weekend. In this house. "It's a big house, Dad." "I live here," I said. "You're staying here. I need you to understand there's a difference before this conversation goes any further." Her smile dropped. Marcus appeared in the doorway a few seconds later, coffee in hand, already reading the room. "Your father," Danielle said, voice sharpening, "is saying we can't have the reunion here." "That's not what I said. I said I wasn't consulted." "Walt, it's just a reunion. My whole family loves this place. You should be proud people want to come here." The word proud hit somewhere behind my sternum and burned there, as if the house was a backdrop, as if 38 years of my work and every inch of Ruth's love in it existed to be a venue. "Figure out your budget," I said. And when you've figured it out, come tell me what part of it you expect me to cover. I walked out before either of them could answer. The list arrived 9 days before Memorial Day, dropped on the kitchen table in front of me while I ate my oatmeal smoked brisket for 40 from a specific butcher across town, 3 cases of a particular craft soda, custom printed napkins, a rented tent with side panels, fresh flowers for every table. At the bottom, in Danielle's handwriting, coolers need at least 6. Ask Dad which ones we can use. I need all of that handled by Thursday, Danielle said, not looking up from her phone. I've got a hair appointment and I have to set up the yard before people start arriving. You planned this reunion, I said, my voice level and unhurried, the way it sounds when I'm holding something tight and choosing not to let it show. You invited these people. You built this menu. You handle the shopping. Danielle's thumbs stopped. Excuse me? This is a party for your husband's family that you organized in a house you don't pay for. You can handle the shopping. Marcus appeared in the doorway, read the room in a second flat, Danielle's rigid shoulders, my face, the list on the table, and his own shoulders dropped. Dad, come on. It's family. We all pitch in. It's just groceries. Just groceries. The phrase sat in the middle of my kitchen and took up more room than it had any right to. It has never been about groceries, I said quietly. Not once. I walked out. Behind me, I heard Danielle mutter to Marcus, low and completely confident. He'll cave. He always does. Watch. I went to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and let something hot and pressurized build behind my eyes for a while. Then, I picked up my phone and called the bank. In Oklahoma, same as most states, a primary account holder can deactivate a secondary card on their own account at any time, effective immediately, no notice required, no explanation owed. I'd added Marcus as an authorized user 18 months back for household expenses, gas, groceries, the occasional repair. The one Danielle had been using freely for her own things for the better part of a year. I called and had it shut off while I was on the phone. 4 minutes. Start to finish. Is there anything else I can help you with, Mr. Griggs? No, ma'am. That'll do it. I hung up and sat with the quiet. Through the wall, I could hear Danielle already back on the phone with a tent rental company, planning delivery windows, entirely unaware. Before I tell you what happened the morning Danielle walked into that grocery store, I need to know you're still with me. If you've ever poured everything into a person who gave you nothing back for it, type the word circuit in the comments right now. Just that. Because I have a feeling there's more of you out here than you'd guess, and folks like us, we know each other on sight. I wasn't there when it happened, but I know exactly how it went. 38 years of reading job sites and reading men who said they understood the work when they didn't teaches you how to reconstruct an event from the wreckage it leaves behind. And by the time Danielle came through my front door that evening, the wreckage told me everything. She'd have left around 9, sunglasses on, the list folded in her purse, confident the way she gets when she's decided she doesn't need help and intends to prove it. She'd have gone to the good grocery store on the north side of town, the one with the specialty butcher counter, and moved through it with the practiced efficiency of someone who never checks a price tag because she assumes someone else is covering it. 2 full carts. Everything on the list, plus things not on it, because that's how Danielle shops when she thinks the bill isn't hers. At the register, the total came up over $600. She handed over the card with the easy motion of a woman who's never once been told no by a piece of plastic. The terminal beeped. Flat. Indifferent. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's showing declined. Her smile would have held for a second before it cracked at the corners. Run it again. It's fine. Same beep. Same word. She'd have grabbed her phone, hands not quite steady, and called Marcus. The card isn't working. Fix it. Call somebody. I'm standing here with $600 of groceries and a line behind me. Marcus's voice, thin through the speaker. I checked this morning, babe. My account's tight. The truck payment just cleared. I don't care about that. Figure it out. And that's when a woman, 2 spots back in line, recognizing her from her online sales page, leaned in bright and delighted. Oh my gosh, are you Danielle from Coastal Home Finds? I follow you. I love your stuff. The blood would have left Danielle's face fast enough that the cashier later told the manager he thought she might actually go down. She'd have turned back to the register, voice scraped hollow. I need to put most of this back. Just leave it. I'll take what I can pay for. 4 bags. out of 2 full carts. I was on the porch when her car pulled in. I heard the engine cut, heard the door slam harder than it needed to. She came up the walk without looking at me. 4 bags, arms rigid, chin held the exact way people hold it when they've decided they will not cry in public. Then she stopped on the steps and turned. "The card didn't work," she said, and her voice had nothing left in it, none of the polish. It was, I think, the most honest thing she'd said to me in 18 months. "No," I said, "it wouldn't." "You did that on purpose." "I deactivated a card attached to my own account. I'm allowed to do that." She stared at me, chin trembling now, and underneath the fury something else crossed her face, something close to real fear. She pressed her lips together and walked past me into the house. I heard her go up the stairs, heard the bedroom door close, and then, muffled through the old plaster walls, the sound of my daughter crying, not the performed kind, the real kind, the kind that only comes out once there's no audience left to manage. Marcus found me in the living room around 9 that night. He sat down across from me, looked at his hands a long moment. "Dad, the reunion. My parents get here in 5 days." Danielle's stressed out of her mind. "I know what today was," I said. "I know Danielle overstepped, but it's already set in motion. Is there any way?" He stopped, met my eyes. "Could you cover the food? Just this once? We're good for it, I promise you. I'll pay you back the second my next commission clears." I looked at my son-in-law, tired around the eyes, in a way that wasn't about the hour. "You're asking me," I said slowly, "to pay for a party thrown by a woman using a card I already deactivated because of the $28,000 you already owe me." His jaw tightened. "When you put it like that, is there another way to put it?" He looked down. "I don't know what else to do here, Dad." I stood, my knee complaining the way it does on cold nights. "Good night, Marcus." I walked to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed in the dark a long while, thinking about the night Ruth and I laid this floor by lamplight because we were too impatient to wait for morning. Then I got up, opened the closet, and took out the travel bag I hadn't used since the summer before. The next morning started quiet, the way the worst mornings always do. I was up at 5. Old habit. 38 years of beating the crew to the job site means my body doesn't wait on an alarm anymore. I made coffee and stood at the counter, and it lasted about 11 minutes before I heard footsteps on the stairs, not the usual ones, but the deliberate, rehearsed kind. Marcus came into the kitchen, already dressed, tie loose around his collar. Danielle stood behind him in the doorway, arms crossed. "Dad." Marcus's voice was flat in a way I hadn't heard from him before. "My parents get in tomorrow. We need the guest room and your room both open for the week. My mom and dad in the guest room, my brother's family in yours. It's the only way the space works with this many people." "That's my bedroom, Marcus." "I know, but we've got almost 50 people arriving in 2 days, and the logistics don't work any other way." He paused, then looked at a spot just past my shoulder instead of at me. "If you're not comfortable with it, maybe you find somewhere else to be for the week." The kitchen went still. "You could sleep in the garage, honestly," he said. "There's a cot back there from when we moved in. It's not forever. Just till everybody clears out." I felt that sentence move through me the way a live wire moves through a body that's forgotten to ground itself. Not sound, not impact. Just a deep current traveling through everything it touched. My hands around the coffee cup didn't shake. My voice, when it came, didn't break. "I understand," I said. 2 words. Sometimes 2 words carry more than 2 pages could, and this was one of those times. I carried my cup to my bedroom and closed the door. I did not make a scene. I didn't sit them down. I didn't write a note for the fridge or do any of the things a man does when he wants credit for his anger. Some decisions don't need an audience. They just need to be made carefully and then acted on. That same morning, while Marcus was at work and Danielle was filming in the living room, I sat at my desk and called the electric company, then the water utility, then the internet provider. Every one of those accounts had been in my name since the day I built this house. Autopay running quietly every month without anyone but me ever giving it a thought. I canceled every single one, effective in 4 days. Then I called my sister, Loretta, who lives 2 hours west with a spare room. She's offered me 100 times since Ruth passed. "I need the room," I told her. "Starting Thursday." "It's ready whenever you are, Walt," she said. "Come on." The next 2 days I moved through the house like water moves around. Stone, same routine, same mornings, said good morning in the hallway, same as always. But I was also saying goodbye to it, the way you say goodbye to a place before you leave, even knowing you're coming back, because the leaving deserves its own acknowledgement. That evening, while they were out, I walked every room slowly, alone, ran my hand along the doorframe I'd planed smooth 30 years back. I stood in the kitchen, under the skylight I'd put in because my wife asked me to. I'll be back, I told the empty house. Thursday morning I woke at 5 without an alarm, dressed in the dark, packed 3 days of clothes, my medications, Ruth's photograph in its little frame. I left a note on the kitchen table, 7 words. House is yours for now. Figure it out. Signed it, folded it once, set it where nobody could miss it. Pete was already at the curb when I came out, engine running, 2 coffees from the gas station in the cup holders. You eat? He asked as I climbed in. I'll eat at Loretta's. He pulled away from the curb. I kept my eyes on the house until the truck turned the corner and it disappeared behind me, and there was only the empty road ahead. And for the first time in almost 2 years, I felt like I was moving towards something instead of just enduring what I'd stayed for. My phone buzzed for the first time 20 minutes outside town. Danielle. I let it go to voicemail. By that evening, it had buzzed 9 more times, texts about the Wi-Fi being down, about an overdue electric notice showing up, about the tent company needing a gate code that didn't work because the smart lock had lost power. I read every one and answered none. At Loretta's kitchen table, Saturday morning, over eggs, my phone lit up with a name I didn't recognize at first. Then I saw it Harold Foster, Marcus's father. Walter, this is Harold, Marcus's dad. I think there's been some confusion about the arrangements this weekend. I'd appreciate a few minutes of your time when you're able. I apologize for reaching out this way. I read it twice. I'd met Harold Foster exactly twice before, both times at Marcus and Danielle's wedding events, a heavy-set man with the particular gravity of someone who's never had much reason to doubt himself. The fact that he'd written to me carefully, formally, with an apology for the method, told me whatever was unfolding at my house had already reached a point where even Harold Foster wasn't certain of his footing. I told Loretta about it over coffee. She just shook her head slow, the of a woman who isn't surprised but finds it satisfying anyway. Loretta was the one who eventually told me most of what happened, because her daughter, my niece Callie, lives 3 houses down from me and had walked past on Saturday afternoon and ended up standing on the sidewalk for 20 minutes watching the whole thing. Cars started showing up around 1, Loretta said, sitting across from me on her back porch that evening. Nice cars, Callie said. Kids running up the walk. Danielle at the door doing the big welcoming wave, big smile. Loretta paused. Callie said the smile looked like it was stapled on. It probably was. Harold and his wife got out first. Callie recognized him from the wedding pictures Danielle posted. Big man, looked the house over like he was appraising it. Loretta shook her head. Then everybody went inside, and about 15 minutes later, Marcus led a whole group of people out back to the yard where the tent was supposed to be set up. My stomach tightened. The tent never got delivered. Marcus never confirmed the order after the card got declined, and the company canceled it without telling anybody. 50 people. No shade, no seating, in 90-degree Oklahoma heat. I sat with that. Then somebody went inside for water. Loretta continued, and found the fridge basically empty and the water not running because the account had been shut off that morning like you'd set up. Toilets wouldn't flush. Kids started crying. And no Wi-Fi, so half the family that was supposed to be on video call couldn't connect. What did Danielle say? Callie said she heard 3 different stories in about 10 minutes. First it was the caterer's fault. Then it was a plumbing issue. Then Loretta's voice dropped a register. Then she said your name. My chest went tight. She told Harold you were supposed to handle logistics, and you bailed on the family. And that's when Harold's sister, Aunt Carol, apparently a very calm, very direct woman, stepped up and asked Danielle, real quiet, "Whose house is this?" "And?" Danielle said. "We live here." And Carol said, "That's not what I asked you." The porch went quiet around us, just the sound of Loretta's own wind chimes somewhere down the yard. That's when Harold walked into the kitchen himself, Loretta said. Opened the empty fridge, closed it, turned around and looked at his own daughter-in-law and asked her straight out whose name is on this house. I sat with that a long moment. Harold Foster, standing in my kitchen, asking the question I'd been asking myself for 6 months. She couldn't answer him, Loretta said quietly. Callie said the whole yard heard it go silent. And that's when the phone rang, Loretta added. Marcus's phone. And he looked at the screen and said, loud enough for everybody to hear, it's Walt. I looked out at the darkening tree line behind Loretta's house. My phone was warm in my jacket pocket. One missed call from Marcus, and a second one coming through right that second. Something told me with the particular certainty of a man who's spent 66 years learning to read a room that it wasn't going to be Marcus's voice on the other end. I let it ring once more, breathed the cool evening air, and picked up. Hello? A half second of silence. Then Danielle's voice, not the bright practiced one from her videos, not even the stripped raw one from the porch steps. Something else entirely, rung all the way out. You planned this, she said. Every part of it. You set it up, and then you just left, and let us deal with it in front of his whole family. Did I invite them, Danielle? I asked, looking out at the trees. Did I plan the menu? Did I promise 50 people a tent and a full kitchen in a house that isn't mine to give away? Her breath came through ragged. You were supposed to be part of this family. I have been the foundation of it for 18 months, I said. I paid for the roof, the water, the electricity, most of the food in that refrigerator. Today is the first day you've had to follow through on something you promised other people yourselves. I didn't do that to you. You did that to yourselves. Behind her voice, I could hear the yard go quiet, the particular silence of a lot of people who've gone still because they're hearing something they weren't meant to. Then Marcus's voice cut in, cracking. Dad, family shows up for each other. You taught me that yourself. My chest tightened around that, because he wasn't wrong. I had said it. I still believed it. I showed up, Marcus, I said. For 18 months, I showed up. I showed up when you needed a roof. I showed up when your commission was thin. I've been showing up since April, since a promise of 4 months turned into never. Today I'm 2 hours west, having eggs with my sister. Those are not the same thing. From further back, muffled but clear enough, Harold Foster's voice. She told us this house was practically going to be theirs. Then Carol's, closer to the phone, flat and unsparing. Danielle, what exactly did you tell people? Danielle made a sound that wasn't quite a word, high and strangled. You ruined my whole reunion, she said, and her voice broke wide open on the last word, not with anger anymore, but with something close to a child caught in a lie too big to see around. You ruined everything. I looked out at the dark tree line and felt the whole weight of the moment settle around me, not triumph, just the specific gravity of a truth, finally finding the room it was always meant to fill. Your guests, I said. Your responsibility. Happy Memorial Day, Danielle. I ended the call. Loretta had gone quiet on the porch beside me, a glass of sweet tea in each hand, one held out for me. Done? She asked. Done. We sat together in the warm evening a long while, without saying much, because sometimes what's just happened is too big for words to do anything but make it smaller. The next few days at Loretta's were the quietest I'd had in almost 2 years, and I mean that as praise. We ate on her porch, played cards, and I didn't check my phone more than I had to. On the third day, a message came through from Harold Foster. Walter, I did not understand the real situation before Saturday. I should have asked more questions before we arrived. What happened in that house was not right, and I want you to know I see that now. I'm sorry. I read it 3 times. 20 minutes later, one from Carol. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I knew something was off the way Danielle talked about that house. Take care of yourself, Walter. I typed back, thank you. That means more than you'd think. That evening, Loretta asked how I felt about all of it. I thought a long minute. Like I should have done this a year ago, I said. Better late than never, Walt, she said. The following Tuesday, a text from Marcus, flat, informational. Danielle's parents left this morning. Most everyone else left Sunday. I read it and didn't answer. Wednesday morning I woke early, sat with my coffee, and looked at Ruth's photograph on the nightstand. I'm going home, I told her. It's ours again. I turned onto my own street an hour later and saw the moving truck before I saw anything else. A rented van, the rear door rolled up. Marcus coming down the front walk carrying a box that looked heavier than it should have been by the way his shoulders were set. He stopped when he saw me get out of Pete's truck. Dad? His voice was rough, scraped thin. Marcus. He set the box down, straight and slow. His eyes were red-rimmed, bright with the kind of wet that comes from being close to crying for a long time and refusing to let it happen. I sold the truck, he said. Private sale, 3 days ago. Enough to pay you back most of what I took, and enough for a deposit on a place off Sheridan. Second floor, no yard. He paused, pressed a fist briefly to his mouth. Danielle cried when she saw it. But it's ours. Our name's on the lease. Nobody else's. How's it look? I asked. Small, he said. Kitchen faces the parking lot, but it's real. His chin trembled once, and he let it. Dad, I know I don't have any right to ask for another shot. I'm not asking for one. I just needed you to hear me say I know what I took, not just the money. I took 2 years of your life in your own house, and I'm sorry. I mean that completely. My chest ached with the particular pain of a father who loves somebody and can't unfracture what got broken and knows, with absolute certainty, that trying to force the fix himself would only break it worse. I crossed the walk and put my hand on his shoulder. One firm, brief press. Then I stepped past him and went inside. The house was clean, not perfect. A scuff on the hallway floor, a small dent in the baseboard, a faint water ring on Ruth's side table, where the photo used to sit, but the clutter was gone. Somebody had put the photo back in its spot. Pete showed up at the back gate 10 minutes later with 2 coffees, and we stood at the fence and watched Danielle come down the front steps with a duffel bag, eyes swollen, not looking my way. She climbed into the passenger seat and pressed her forehead to the glass. Marcus closed the truck's rear door, looked over at me from the end of the driveway, and raised one hand. I raised mine back. The truck pulled away, turned the corner, and was gone. You doing all right? Pete asked. Better than I've been in a long time, I said. That evening I opened the closet and took out the box I hadn't touched since the Christmas before Ruth passed, the lights, the little ornaments she'd collected one by one from craft fairs over 3 decades, the star I'd cut and sanded myself the first year we had this house. I set the tree up slow, alone, taking my time with every piece. I pulled Ruth's chair to its spot by the window, sat down, and let the house settle around me, the hum of the fridge, the wind spinner turning on the back porch, every sound I'd known for 30 years, every sound that had always meant home. Some people ask if I regret any of it, if I wish I'd handled it differently. My answer's always the same. I only regret waiting as long as I did. I spent 18 months telling myself patience was the same thing as love. It isn't. Patience without a limit isn't love, it's permission. Permission for the people who should respect you most to keep taking until there's nothing left to take. I learned that the hard way, and I hope you don't have to. If I could go back and say one thing to the man I was that April, the one who opened his door to a moving truck without a second thought, I'd say this: your kindness is not endless, and it was never supposed to be. A man who gives everything away eventually has nothing left to stand on, and a man with nothing left to stand on can't help anybody, not even the people he loves most. I'm not a vengeful man by nature. I'm an electrician. I spent my whole life making sure the current runs where it's supposed to, and nowhere it isn't. But I learned this year that sometimes, before you can rebuild anything worth having, you've got to cut the power to what's draining you first. That's all I did. I cut the power. If this story found something in you, if it made you think about a door you've been holding open too long for somebody who stopped earning it, tell me about it in the comments below. Share it with somebody who needs to hear it today. And stick around, because every story on this channel starts the same place most people are too scared to start, with the truth. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. It means more than you know.